So the first book I will talk about is We Don't Eat Our Classmates. This is by Ryan Higgins, who did Mother Bruce, which is out there. And this is about a T-Rex who's just starting school, and she's anxious. And I'm just going to read a little bit for you. Read a little bit. Penelope Rex was nervous. It's not every day a little T-Rex starts school. What are my classmates going to be like? Will they be nice? How many teeth will they have? This was very important. Penelope's mom bought her a new backpack with ponies on it. Ponies were Penelope's favorite because ponies are delicious. Penelope's dad packed her a lunch of 300 tuna sandwiches and 1 apple juice. Finally, the big day began, and Penelope Rex was very surprised to find out that all her classmates were children. So she ate them, because children are delicious. Penelope Rex, said Mrs. Noodleman, we don't eat our classmates. Please spit them out at once. So she did. And you see her with the shoe hanging out of her mouth. And on the next page, she spits them out, and they're all covered with slobber. It's very funny. So she does eat her classmates, a few of them, a few more times, and has to spit them out again. And of course, she has a hard time making friends because no one wants to be near her. And eventually, she learns her lesson when someone else tries to eat her. So it's a very very fun, funny book. I think it's my favorite picture book of the fall. The next book I'll talk about is The Day You Begin, and this is by Jacqueline Woodson. She also has Harbor Me, which is out in the new novel section. And this is just a very affirming book about being different and how we're all different and yet we're all the same. The illustrations they're stunning and very colorful. And the writing is just very kind of poetic and simple. And I'll just read a couple pages for you. There will be times when you walk into a room and no one there is quite like you. Maybe it will be your skin, your clothes, or the curl of your hair. There will be times when no one understands the way the words curl from your mouth, the beautiful language of the country you left behind. My name is Rigoberto. We just moved here from Venezuela. And because they don't understand, the classroom will fill with laughter until the teacher quiets everyone. And you can see just the illustrations, and this is a great diversity title, and you have schools asking for that. The next book I'll talk about is Dear Girl, and this is by Amy Krauss Rosenthal and her daughter. She recently passed away, and she knew she was dying, and she wrote this for her daughter before she passed away. And it's just a love letter to girls to empower them. And I'll just give you a few. Don't make us cry. I know, but it's just a really empowering, lovely book. Dear girl, keep that arm raised. You have smart things to say. Dear girl, sometimes you may feel like being pink and sparkly. Sometimes you may feel pretty much the opposite. Dear girl, look at yourself in the mirror. Say thank you to something that makes you you. Thank you, freckles. Thank you, birthmark. Thank you, red hair. Dear girl, sometimes you just need a good cry. Sometimes you'll need a friend. Sometimes you'll need to be alone. Sometimes you'll need a tissue. Sometimes you'll need a bucket. And it just goes on, and it's just so touching. The next book I'll talk about is Giraffe Problems, and I don't know if you remember. Do you remember Penguin Problems? Were you here? So this is the same author and illustrator, and this time Giraffe is the main character, and he's upset because his neck is so long. I'll just read some pages so you get a feel for it. It's very funny. I feel bad about my neck. I do. I can't help it. It's too long, too bendy, too narrow, too dopey, too patterned, too stretchy, too high, too lofty, too necky. Yes, my neck is too necky. Everybody stares at it. And then he, goes on to talk about other people's necks and how they have great necks and how he tries to disguise it. And then he goes on again. My mom says that I should be proud of my neck. She said other animals would love to have a neck like this. Yeah, right. No offense, Mom, but nobody wants this neck. It's a neck only a mother could love. It all makes me want to hide until the sun sets. And then he meets a turtle who, of course, loves his neck because his neck can do things that the turtle's neck can't. And so then Giraffe realizes that maybe he's not so bad off. Very funny. The next book I will talk about is Holes in the Sky by Patricia Polacco, and you might know her from Chicken Sunday. She's written a lot of books. Thank you, Mr. Faulkner. And her books are longer. There's a lot of text in these, so they're probably older picture books. Like that's a lot of text for one page. And this is just a very nice story about a girl whose grandmother that passes away, and then the family moves to San Francisco, and she makes a new friend, and I think his name is Stuart. We'll just say it's Stuart. And she meets his grandmother, Mrs. Eula, who is from a character from Chicken Sunday. And they become fast friends, and there's this one house in the neighborhood that has the cranky old woman, and stay away from that house. And so it turns out that the woman who lives in that house is friends with Miss Eula, and the house used to have this beautiful garden, and the woman who lives there, Mrs. Bocce, her son passed away in the war, and it was really his garden, so when he passed away, she just let the garden die. And so they get the idea of gathering all the neighbors and fixing up her garden when she's out of town, and just a very, very sweet story. So if you're a fan of Patricia's, you'll love this book. I think it's one of her books that I like the best. The next book is How to Be a Lion, and this is kind of a little funny, a little touching, about a lion who is a gentle poet, and he meets this duck named Marianne, and they become friends. And there's one part where the other lions find out that he's friends with a duck, and they don't like it. Oh, and they don't like that he's gentle too. So they confront him, and let's see. One day, a pack of fierce lions comes prowling around. "What's going on here?" they growled. "Why hasn't that duck been chomped?" "This duck is Marianne," said Leonard. "She's my friend, and nobody will chomp her." The fierce lions came closer. "We heard you're gentle. We heard you make up poems, but not chomping a duck, you've gone too far." So it's sort of about bullying too, but it's a very nice story with a nice resolution. The next book is I'm Tough, and this is by Kate and Jim McMullen. This is really a good boy book. We also have Elbow Grease, which is autographed by John Cena. We have a lot of those. But this one, it's really nice. It's has beautiful language, like the words that are just great to say out loud. And it's just very simple, and it's about trucks, so boys are going to love this. And I'll just give you a little sample of the writing. "Who am I? I'm not the biggest truck in the parking lot, but I'm big enough, 'cause guess what? I'm tough. Got a cab up front, cargo bed behind. My tailgate drops down flat for loading freight. Revving up my engine, coming through, got a 3-load job to do." So it's a great read aloud. The next book here we go. The next book is Little Brown. This is by Marla Frazee. She's a local author. She does a lot of books, and we end up carrying all of them. Her books are great. And this one is about a dog who is a cranky dog, and the others aren't. They're kind of staying away from him because of that. And it starts out really nice because it says, Little Brown was cranky. And you can see him, he looks cranky. And probably because no one ever played with him. Or maybe no one ever played with him because he was cranky. At this point, it was hard to know. And so one day a ball accidentally there's a bunch of dogs in this grassy area. One day one of their toys comes to him, and he keeps it. And then he starts stealing all the other toys until he has all the toys, and then there's a dilemma, and the dogs want their toys back, and they don't know what to do. And so the dogs are thinking, is Little Brown cranky because we don't play with him, or do we not play with him because he's cranky? Should we play with him to get our stuff back, or will that make us cranky too? What then? And then the little brown is thinking, if I give it all back, will they like me? Then will they play with me? What if I give it all back and they still won't play with me? What then? And so they just kind of sit and ponder everything, and they can't come up with a decision. And so, and then it's time for them to go in, and it says maybe tomorrow they will know what to do. So this doesn't resolve the way books usually resolve, but it's an interesting call at the end. Mixed to colorful story. This is a fun book about a world where there are all these dots. There are red, yellow, and blue, and they're all getting along until one day one of the reds shout, "Reds are the best," and then the yellows are like, "No, yellows are the best," and the blues are too cool to say anything, and then they all kind of like separate. And then one day, a blue and a yellow get together, and they have a little green dot baby. And at first, people are shocked that they're together, but the baby's so cute, they all kind of melt, and then everyone else starts mixing. And it's just a neat book. And one of the things that's very special about this is, at the beginning you have red, yellow, and blue dots on the end papers, and on the back end papers you have all these multicolored dots. It's a really neat, whoever did this did a great job. Okay. The last picture book I'll talk about is the Thank You book. And this is, I don't know, for those of you who use gratitude on a daily basis, this is just a really nice book about being thankful for the things throughout your day. And it starts in the morning and ends in the evening. And I think it's just a nice way for a kid to end the day, to think about what they're grateful for. And it's just, the illustrations are cute, and it's just very simple and relatable. Now I'll talk about the novels. The first one is Ivy and Bean, One Big Happy Family. This is in the easy chapter section, and this is the 11th book. There hasn't been, I think it's been 4 years since she released a book, and these are such fun characters. I've read other books in that section, and they're pretty kind of simple. They don't have much personality, and these characters are a lot of fun. They have a lot of personality, and what happens is they're at school, and one of the girls in their class says, Ivy, you're an only child. You must be spoiled. You get everything. You don't have to share your toys. So Ivy is on a mission to prove that she's not spoiled, and they come up with these different plans, and their final plan is to get a baby sister for Ivy, and so she'd have to, share and not get everything, and they're kind of far-fetched, and everything sort of works out at the end. It's just a really nice book. The next one is Alan Bratt's Grenade. Last fall we had Refugee, which I loved, and this is another book. This author is really great at, doing like fictional nonfiction. This book is set in Okinawa in 1945 during World War II. It takes place right before the Americans invade the island because they want to gain control of it to have an advantage over Japan. Like a place where they can, have the island to have a strategic advantage. There you go. So the story is, it has two characters. One's a Okinawan boy who is in school, and the Japanese army has drafted these boys from Okinawa, and they have their own kind of special army, and they're given grenades and not very much instructions, and go out there. And then the other character is an American soldier, a young American soldier, and the story goes back and forth between the two perspectives, and then about halfway through the book we lose one of the characters, and then it's just the other one telling the rest of the story. There's a lot of action and suspense, and also historical information, and then you get to see the impact of what what this had on the island and the people who lived there after the war. And it's also a very thoughtful meditation on being a soldier and killing people and being good but not doing good things. And it's just, there's a lot in this book, and I think anyone who reads it will get a lot out of it. The next novel is Kate DiCamillo's new book, Louisiana's Way Home, and you might know her from A Tale of Despereaux, The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane. We have a lot of her books, and this is her newest one. Louisiana is a character from Rainy Nightingale. In this book, she has her own story, and this is probably my favorite novel of all of them. And what happens is, in the middle of the night, Raimi lives with her grandmother, and her grandmother gets these middle of the night ideas. And this night, she gets up and she's like, "We're going to remove the family curse. Get in the car. We're leaving, and we're not coming back." So along the way, Granny's teeth are giving her pain because she hasn't been taking care of them, and she has to stop and have them all pulled out, and then they get stuck in this Georgia town while she recuperates. There are a lot of far-out characters, wonderful writing. The language in here is amazing, and Louisiana gets to find herself, and let's see, what else? I don't know. She's just a very colorful character. The next book I'll talk about is actually Saving Winslow, which we don't have on the shelf at the moment. It's on order. I think we'll have some today or in the boxes. This book is about a father who brings a newborn donkey who probably isn't going to survive. And the young boy, he is determined to save this donkey. He's had other pets and they've all passed away, but his track record isn't good. But he's gonna save this donkey. And whenever anyone talks about, it's like this donkey probably isn't gonna make it, he's like, "Nope, don't say that." If they want to say, he might die. No, don't say that. And he actually ends up saving this donkey. He also meets this girl who is very kind of pessimistic. Like, "I don't know why you're putting all this work into this, because it's not worth it. He's gonna die." And at one point, these two have a conversation about why are you so pessimistic? And she goes, "Well, why are you so foolishly optimistic?" And they're just little kids, but it's like a very kind of natural conversation that they have, and it really encapsulates their relationship. And it's a very sweet, simple book, and I think that one is really good for a family read with a younger kid. The next book is Sweet by Jonathan Auxier. We actually have maybe a few copies of Peter Nimble and His Fantastic Eyes in Satan, and we have had his other book, The Night Gardener. This author is a great storyteller who tells these rich stories that have a very classical feel to them, and this one is no exception. This one is set in Victorian London, and it's about chimney sweeps. There's this young girl named Nan Sparrow who is orphaned, and she is working for this Master Crud, who's this horrible man who takes advantage of all these, young kids who are, have no families, and only kids can clean the chimneys because they're small enough to get in there and clean them. So she's working for this man. She did have a father figure, a father who we see in flashbacks, and he was a chimney sweep as well and taught her, and they had a very special relationship even though they were struggling, and he gave her a little piece of charcoal, and she called it her char, and you kind of get a sense that there's some magical property about this coal, even though you don't know, but you just kind of get that sense. And at one point in the story, Nan gets stuck in a chimney, and there's a fire burning below, and she is going to die. And the next thing you know, this jar comes to life, rescues her, and it's sort of like this creature. And he's very naive. He's like a newborn child. She names him Charlie, and she becomes a parent to him. And since she is presumed dead, she and Charlie, they hole up in an abandoned house, and they have like it's just kind of like, I would say he has some magical abilities where he can make things live, and he turns a room into like a growing room where there's grass and trees inside this house, and it's just an amazing story. Eventually, she is discovered, and the man she used to work for wants him back, and it becomes, the story, she has to face that. She has to face him, and it's just a very magical story with historical content, strong characters, and a compelling plot. It's a great story. The next book I'll talk about is Until Tomorrow, Mr. Marsworth. This was from the spring, and it's a richly profound story. There's a girl who, her family moves into this town, and she starts delivering newspapers, and she starts like writing letters to this one guy on her route. He's a recluse, and she kind of weasels her way into his life by writing these notes, and he doesn't respond as much as she writes to him, it's almost a little annoying, but you get to know what her life is like, and so it turns out that this book is set in the summer of 1968, and this girl's brother is going to be drafted into the war, and she wants to do anything she can to prevent that from happening. And the man that she writes to, Mr. Marsworth, is a former draft dodger. And so she's writing to him, can you help me? What can I do? And so he does, give her some ideas. But there's more to this book than just that. There's some bullies, and once they find out that she's trying to help her brother avoid the draft, they target her and her brother even more. And then you get all these different perspectives on the war. It's another thoughtful meditation about different perspectives on war and the draft, and it's very respectful. I don't know. This is another wonderful book. The next one is Voyage of the Dogs. This is by Greg Van Eekhout. And this is a book about dogs in space. This one's a little bit more fun, not so heavy. So these 4 dogs are specially trained to make this journey from Earth to a planet that is 152 light years away. And at one point during their journey, they are put to sleep. And they'll be woken up towards the end of the trip. These dogs can communicate with the humans on the ship. They've had chips implanted, so they can actually have conversations, just very. It's a neat premise. So close to when the dogs are woken up. It turns out all the humans are gone. The ship's been damaged, and they have to figure out how to repair the ship and to complete the mission. It's just a very fun book, especially if you like dogs. It's a great story. The last 3 books I'll talk about, these are all teen books, 12 and up. The first one is Darius the Great is Not Okay. This is a book about a boy who is half Persian, half American. His parents have decided not to teach him English because they want him to assimilate better into the American culture. He has a younger sister who was taught Persian, and he also suffers from depression. His dad has depression, so he's on medication, and he's just this very awkward boy. His parents, he only knows them. His parents live in Iran. He only knows them through video chats, and his grandfather becomes sick, and the family goes to visit. he meets a boy there, and they become fast friends. And this boy is kind of like a savior for him. This boy teaches him that it's okay not to be okay. And there's so many issues in this book, about family and culture and let's see. He is jealous of his sister because she does speak the language. She communicates better with the family than he can because he doesn't speak the language. He's also jealous because she's muscling in on his, and the only time that he has with his dad, they watch Star Trek, and the sister starts doing that, and it's ruining it for him. And he's, he can't please his dad. His dad is very hard on him, and so there's just a lot going on in this book. But throughout the book, this boy is just a very touching character. The next book is Dry. This is a really neat kind of disaster book. So it's set in Southern California. There is, we've had this drought going on. People can't water their yards or fill their pools, but then the water gets shut off. And that's when the mayhem starts. And, people rush to the stores to buy bottled water, and then they're like fight over it. The freeways become parking lots because people are trying to leave town, and it becomes so crowded that people can't move. They try to fly out at the airports. The flights start shutting down. So it's sort of like you just kind of see it unfold, and it's very plausible. So the book has 4 characters. It has a lot of characters, but kind of 4 main characters that you follow throughout, and it switches perspectives. There's Elisa, who's just kind of your regular normal girl. There's Kelton, her nerdy neighbor, whose family is they're super prepared for disaster. They have like a compound. They know how to have water stored up, and how to like if you don't have water, you have issues with your toilets and the smell coming up from the pipes, and so they know what to do. And there's also Jackie, who's this wild card that they meet when they're trying to rescue parents, and she's their age, and she's just she's kind of more aggressive. And then there's Henry. There's this boy who lives in this wealthy neighborhood, and his mom was selling this vitamin water that no one wanted, but since now that there's there's no water, people will trade cars for a box of water. So he's milking the system. Anyway, this is such a wonderful book. Because it's a disaster book, and all the stuff that goes on and could go on. It's a lot of fun. And then the last book, it's in the graphic novel section. This is called Hey Kiddo. It's got a blue cover with a boy on the front. And this is by Jared Krasotska, who did the Lunch Lady series. And this is a story about, it's actually a memoir, and it's about his mom being a drug addict, being in and out of rehab, and he's raised by his grandparents, his dysfunctional grandparents, and but loving. They're very loving. And so this book focuses on him making a friend. It's also about his love of art, and how his grandparents supported that, and art really saved him and became his livelihood. And it's also about, his mom isn't the villain as the addict. It's about hope and forgiveness and acceptance of her. And it's just, it's very well done, very moving. And it's up for awards, so I think we'll hear a lot more about it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a policy that allows you to borrow books. If you would like to do that, you can